So many rings on this cigar. What are they trying to do? Keep me from smoking it? Don't have my cigar cutter. Hold on, let me go get my cigar cutter. Be a little more civilized here. I was just gonna bite it off the way the Three Stooges do. All right, so we're just gonna create the environment for learning here. Shall I give it a V cut or a guillotine cut? I'll go with the guillotine today. Here we go. Got my tea here as well. Take a sip of that before we get going. Perfect. Let me fire this up. It looks like we have a little wind out here tonight. Yeah, nice. Tonight's teaching is going to be, are you ready for this? I don't know if you're going to be ready for this. I'm calling this teaching, Water is Thicker Than Blood. How to walk away from toxic family and friends. And many people ask questions privately all the time. I've said, you choose your friends, but you don't get to choose your family. That's a fact, right? You've heard people say blood is thicker than water. Not always. That's only if the family is working in your best interest. You choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And that is limited because as you get older, you get to choose your family. Just because somebody shares the same genetics as you does not mean that you need to have them in your life. And I think I'm the only one, out of all the years that I have worked with people, I think I am the only one that helped people get out of marriages. I was helping men get out of marriages. You've heard me say it's better to save the man. I'd rather save the man than save the marriage. Many times, if you save the man, the marriage does automatically get saved, but that's not the reason why. So I'm good at helping men create exit plans. I don't help women leave their marriages because I do believe women have an unfair advantage when it comes to leaving marriages. And if we're intellectually honest, that we know that's a fact. So I've worked with many men over the years who wanted to get out of a marriage but don't know how to do it. They feel guilty. And it takes time. It takes a few months of putting your thoughts in order, writing things down, homework assignments and such. Well, how do you walk away from family? Toxic relationships in family. It's very similar. You feel guilty. You don't know what to do. You feel like the bad guy. So I'm going to create some boundaries for you, and I'm going to give you an outline about how to walk away from toxic family. Some of you need that, and that is a service that I am offering in my coaching. That is to men and women. Let's talk about some reasons why one might want to cut ties with family members. Number one, if the relationship is based upon any abuse of any type, if you are living in constant anxiety, it's time to respect yourself enough to exit the situation. Number two, when the only contact you have with them is negative. Number three, when they create stress that affects important areas of your life, like your own immediate family, or your work life, your social life, or even if you are just a solo person that has gone their own way, if they're even making that miserable, it's time to cut ties. Number four, when you find yourself defending yourself, when one or more family members seem to gang up on you, it's time to cut the ties. Number five, when the relationship is completely about the other person and no one wants to hear what you have to say, it's time to cut the ties. And finally, the sixth reason why you would terminate a relationship, a family relationship, is this. When no-win arguments are brought up, realize that all the sanity, clarity, and reason in the world is going to be disrespected and squandered. It's time to go. You know, whenever I have a cigar, it enjoys the hell out of me. That was a line from The Most Interesting Man in the World. That's just such a classic line. Now, how do you leave toxic family members? Number one, you have to get clear in your head. Don't be impulsive. Give it time. You never leave or close the door based upon one event. Never do that. If it's several events over weeks, months, years, a portion of a life, a decade, then you might be onto something. But never impulsively walk away from your family. Never. So the first thing you do is you create space between you and the toxicity, and take mental notice how you feel when you create that space. Do you feel better when you have less contact with them? Or do you feel worse? Do you feel like you miss them? And log those. What I would ask people to do is to have just buy a composition book at the dollar store and use that as a journal. It's going to help you. So get clear, reflect on all the relationships with the family. You might need to take a breather. Don't be impulsive. Create space first and log how you feel. Notice how you feel. You're going to notice certain things, like every time you are with those family members or a family member, that it takes you a week to recover or 2 weeks to recover. My Lord, life is too short for having to be in recovery from your family. But create space first. Never be impulsive. Number three, negotiate new terms with yourself. Never give ultimatums. Never give ultimatums. Negotiate new terms with yourself. Come up with anywhere between 2 and 3 or 4 different new models of relationship with the toxic family members. If it means you only see each other on holidays, if it means that you only send each other birthday cards, if it means you only talk when there's emergencies and such, then so be it. If it's you only get together one holiday a year instead of every holiday, negotiate new terms. And they have to be on your terms, because you wouldn't be leaving if you were happy. Think about this. Number 4, boundaries must be established. Boundaries must be established. You have a life, don't you? You want it to be normal. You don't want to have a free-floating anxiety that's accompanying you to work, into your marriage, into your relationships, into your parenting, into your friendships, into your creativity, because you know that that anxiety affects everything that you do. So understand where the boundaries need to be. Is it going to be phone calls? Is it going to be texts? Is it going to be cold turkey? Chop. We're done. In extreme cases, chop is the way to go. Number 5, let go of the fantasy that your family is close and important. You know you get along better with friends than you do with certain family members or family. John Bradshaw talks about it, where when he was a young man, he thought that when he got married, he was going to be sitting back as an old man, gray old man, and all his kids were going to be around him, gleaning from his wisdom. Well, he got to be an old man, and guess what? His kids weren't sitting all around him. So he had to kind of reassess the situation. The fantasy that you're all going to grow old gracefully together. It's not going to happen that way. So one of the things that you have to do is learn how to grieve the loss even before you die or before they die. This is where the rubber hits the road, and this is where working with me will help you do that. So let go of the fantasy that you have a normal, healthy, productive relationship with your family or family member. Grieve the loss. And also realize that grief has several different stages. Anxiety, anger, depression, that's all part of it. Some of this can take up to a year to separate from people. You will feel relief almost immediately, but then the mind goes back and says, well, what if I did this? What if I did that? These measures that I'm talking about in this teaching right now are after you've done all of those things and they didn't work. You kept going with the same cycle. Now you're 30, now you're 40, now you're 50, now you're 60. I remember asking a pastor many, many years ago, I was probably 25 years old. I said, Pastor, I was explaining to him some of the things that were going on in my life. I go, when does it end? He said, when you die. I'm like, gee, thanks for the hope. Things don't get better by themselves. You have to be proactive and you have to be decisive. Remember, in some of my former teachings, you've heard me talking about being decisive, which means your yes means yes and your no means no. Now, number 6, start fresh, maybe even geographically. Many times you might have to move away from family. Let go of the fantasy that you're going to take walks in the morning and have coffee with your brother, sister, mom, or dad, and everything's going to be fine. It's not going to be fine. You've been there, you've done that, you tried it, it doesn't work. If you have to start fresh geographically, don't be afraid to do it. This is where the decisiveness comes in. And number 7, focus on building a family, or for lack of a better term, a family unit of your own. Did you ever see the movie Under the Tuscan Sun, where I believe her name was Frances? She wanted to have a family, and she ended up not having a marital family with children, but she ended up having friends and giving away a young woman in marriage. And it came to her all of a sudden at the end of the movie, if you ever saw it, where it occurred to her, wow, this is my family. So focus on building a family or a family unit of your own. These are some things to think about if you need to separate from toxic family and friends. Water is thicker than blood. You choose your friends, you can't choose family, not at first, but you can later on. So I hope that helps. I know many of you struggle with that. I have struggled with it, and it's not something you can do on your own. And if you needed coaching on this, I am certainly willing to help you with that professionally. And it takes a while. It's a service that I provide, very similar to the uncoupling, the conscious uncoupling that I do when I help men leave a marriage that they feel very guilty about staying in, but it's not fulfilling in any way. And men are at a disadvantage when leaving marriages, and the only advantage that they can get is here and logistically. But when it comes to family, it's a different story. There's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of grief, there's a lot of stages that you're going to go through, and you can't do it alone. You need somebody to walk you through it. But I gave you some tips right there that'll at least give you a little start. I hope that helps.